Hello and welcome back. Today is Friday. We've made it to Friday, and all we are going to do today is talk about Blake Lively's new second amended complaint in the lawsuit. Wow. Okay, so when I thought that she was going to refile against Jed Wallace, I really thought that the complaint would only be targeting Jed Wallace. I didn't know that she would have an entire new amended complaint with more things to say about Justin Baldoni as well as all of the Wayfarer people. But so as I was reading it, I was like, this is an entire new amended complaint, which made me very frustrated because why was the Wayfarer parties not afforded the same before their claims were dismissed against Ryan Reynolds, the New York Times, and Leslie Sloan? It's just mind-boggling. And reading through it, there is a lot of repetition. It's 150 pages, but a lot of it is repeated. A lot of it is already the same stories that we know. However, there is a lot of new stuff taking massive jabs, super insults at the Wayfarer people. And I had to take breaks because already we know a lot of these claims have been found unfounded and they're still in there, but there's more. So we're going to go through all of that. That's going to be today's whole video. Now, I already know Perez Hilton, he filed in his state, so that's going to go there. So now they have to subpoenas. They're going to have subpoenas to motions to quash in all states. And I know Lauren was on page 6 today. Congratulations, standing up for the harassment and for content creators. That's amazing, as well as a lot of other things have been going on. But today specifically, I'm only going to be talking about the new amended complaint. Okay, I'm telling you right now, grab your emotional support lip gloss or whatever you have because you're going to need it. I've already made some comments and we are going to go over some of the most relevant stuff, but of course some of the things that we've already known, because even after not reading her first CRD complaint, her first CRD complaint, her amended complaint, to now rereading the second amended complaint, it's like, oh my gosh. And she really, really, really believes that all the content creators, now we know over 107 content creators have been subpoenaed, which makes me worried because I never got notice of a subpoena. I've emailed Google. I've received no response. So if my information gets turned over to Blake Lively and her team without me being afforded due diligence or without my permission or even receiving notice, that's going to be a problem. Okay, that's going to be a problem. But without any further ado, grab the lip gloss, girlies. We're going in. This is the new complaint that was filed by Blake Lively the night before her deposition. She did sit for her deposition allegedly yesterday. Justin Baldoni was there. The headlines were crazy, like it was some surprise. He just showed up. He's like, it was out of nowhere. Like, hello, the judge granted that Blake Lively get a list of people who are going to be at that subpoena, at that deposition. She already knew. And the defendants in every deposition have a right to be there. Okay, so it wasn't a shock. It wasn't a surprise. He didn't corner her, and she was fully prepared and knew what was going on. And that narrative that just like he surprised her out of nowhere and shocked her and is furthering harassing and triggering her, that's dangerous and it needs to stop. Now, this is really long. Like I said, it's 150 pages. A lot of it is repeated. I'm going to try to just go over what I find is the most relevant and little things that I saw. However, it's a wild ride to go through. I really think what they are doing is, and what they've tried to do in this complaint, which is very sad, is use all of the work that Justin Baldoni has done for survivors, for women, for men, his entire mission, and say that he's only done that and he's only used victims to benefit himself and further this narrative. That is very dangerous. I don't think it's right, number one, because he is a survivor. He was sexually assaulted, which he has said, and they bring that up in here. Since that sexual assault, he started to make real changes and advocate for survivors and victims because he is one of them. So the way that they drag him and the way that they want us to believe that this whole time he was just faking it for clout. And, you know, it's bonkers. But I will say that some of the texts and some of the things that they show here from PR are damning. Okay, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. However, a lot of the things we now know are also not true. And I do want to preface this by saying, when we do get into the parts where Justin Baldoni is talking about amping up survivor talk and using social media posts and using real victims, social media also is a business. It's a tool. It's a branding kit. And Blake does the exact same thing. She does the exact same thing with social media, but obviously in a different way, which we've seen, right? So glass houses, y'all, glass houses. But let's just get into it, because I had to take some breaks. I have some footnotes and some notes in here of what I read. Let me know what y'all think about it, okay? This will be the whole video, and then we'll get into some of your comments at the end. I promise I already have those queued up. This was filed last minute on July 30th, 2025. Jury trial demanded. It is the second amended complaint for sexual harassment, retaliation, breach of contract, false light, defamation, and other claims. So right off the bat, just thinking that she fully believes that all of these people were part of not only the sexual harassment, but also part of covering it up, it to me is just so nuts, okay? It is nutty, cuckoo, bananas. It starts the same way they used Justin Baldoni's words against him. Plaintiff Blake Lively brings this lawsuit because she was unlawfully retaliated against for coming forward and reporting sexual harassment that occurred against her and others on the set of It Ends With Us. Y'all already know that I think what they did was defense and accountability and not retaliation. This is nutty, okay? But for years prior to the release of the film, Mr. Baldoni portrayed himself as a leader of the male feminist movement, writing books, hosting podcasts, and holding TED Talks on the topic. In reality, however, Mr. Baldoni's public persona is a stark contrast to his private behavior, which is replete with hypocrisy, misogyny, and retaliation. In public, Mr. Baldoni gave the appearance of taking responsibility for the fact that he had unconsciously been hurting and silencing the women in his life and implored men to be man enough to shut the hell up and listen to women. He claimed that he wanted to end toxic masculinity, acknowledging his own toxic behavior by admitting that there is a woman or two that I in some way have made uncomfortable by saying something or doing something that was chauvinistic or sexist. There is 1,000,000% probability that exists. And that he wanted to say he was sorry and that he would do better. Mr. Baldoni echoed this narrative while marketing the film. In an interview on CBS during the release of the film on August 7th, 2024, he claimed, "I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable." I do want to say here that, like, consent and accountability and what we now call toxic masculinity was rampant, was normal. There wasn't really any lines between consent all the way, even when I was growing up. Like, everyone, I'm sure, who grew up in like 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, I mean, consent only really became this big thing just prior, I think, to the Me Too movement. You know, it was really asked like, did you say no? Did you fight? Did you leave? And a lot of times we know that that is not the case. So I think there are a lot of men as well as women that have done this, that have, you know, made people feel uncomfortable or kind of blur the lines and have said chauvinistic and sexist things. I mean, even in my footnote here, it's like, yes, every man, should we talk about Ryan Reynolds, number one, first of all, sexually assaulting Miss Wilde on the set, you know, with the breast pasties. And during this video, I really wish like I had a team to be like, pull it up, find that video, because I've already talked on these things. So there is Ryan Reynolds on a late night talk show talking about how he put his hands on Olivia Wilde's breast during filming, and when he took them off, the pasties came off and he didn't know what to do. So he just put his bare hands back on her breast and held them there and felt like it was a dream come true for any man to do. And he was like a free show for all the crew and stuff like that. Or I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it was so disgusting. And that is sexual assault. Okay, Ryan Reynolds, just so we're clear on set. You said they called cut. You didn't know what to do. You felt so excited that you could just put your hands back on her body. Disgusting, okay? as well as Ryan Reynolds was asked once if he can go back in time to a moment in history, what would it be? And you know what his answer was? To go back to a hotel lobby where he saw a mother pumping and stared at her. That's the moment that he would go back to. So let's pretend here that, y'all aren't so perfect when your husband literally has admitted to doing some of the creepiest things ever to women, okay? Ugh. At his own moment of truth, when forced to confront women he had made uncomfortable on his own set, he trivialized their concerns and failed to take accountability for the effects of his behavior, whether intended or not. When faced with the predictable consequences of having created a toxic set, namely that the cast did not want to appear alongside him in public, which is a lie, because his own cast member, Hassan, I believe his name is, gave him an award in December for his work for women's rights. So they didn't all decide not to appear with him. The ones you had in your pocket, Blake Lively, the ones that you groomed, Brendan, who you are now getting into Batman, right? You sold him on Batman. You got him signed with WME. And then Isabella, we already know that you gave clothes to. You let her sleep at your house. You groomed her as your little sister. Sleepovers. Strange, right? And then we already know the other one who admitted to actually abusing and fighting and beating up her ex-boyfriend, Chris Evans. So, yeah. And she was mad that they offered to pay over $10,000 for her new condo so that she could be happy with her toddler. But because they brought up the sanctity of motherhood, she didn't like that. So, yeah, okay. Interesting that you groomed them, you paid for their trip to Book Bonanza, you paid for all of their clothes. I mean, they just picked the bigger dog in the fight. But his other cast member, Hassan, was actually giving him an award. So if he thought it was that bad, why would he be doing that? Mr. Baldoni hid behind his billionaire friend and retained publicists, crisis managers, digital media strategists, and litigators to mount a sophisticated and well-funded retaliation campaign that sought to bury and destroy anyone that challenged his brand. The campaign has succeeded beyond Mr. Baldoni's wildest expectations. In fact, the defendant's actions have created such a toxic climate online, vitriol against Miss Lively, her family, and other members of the cast, and various fact witnesses that all of the above have received disturbing threats. One fact witness known to publicly support Miss Lively recently received a letter threat indicating that the witness's family would be sexually assaulted and killed unless the witness agreed to make a statement and give the truth. This type of climate was the predictable, if not inevitable, result of the retaliatory campaign launched by the Baldoni Wayfair parties both before and after the litigation process. Well, you're not the only one, because Steve Soritz had threatening things to kidnap his daughter for Blake Lively. If he could spend all of that money to defend themselves against Blake Lively, then he wouldn't mind spending any more for his daughter and his family. And people burnt the garbages at his house. So, the dangerous climates of threats, harassment, and intimidation fueled by the defendant's retaliation campaign was required Miss Lively to alter her personal and professional life and to take steps to protect innocent bystanders rather than exposing them to further harm. Really? You had to alter your personal and professional life? Should we go down the things that you have done in the last 6 months? Late night talk shows, a world tour of Another Simple Favor, the Wrexham games. I mean, that's just a little bit. SNL 50, the Time thing. I mean, all of your social media, your Betty Boo's, your hair care products, girl. You didn't alter nothing. You and your husband went full speed ahead. The amended complaint does not refer to certain witnesses by name, nor does it provide screenshots of their text messages. Of course, Miss Lively brought this lawsuit because she was one of the women, or two, that Baldoni's 1,000,000% made feel uncomfortable on the set of the film. Miss Lively was disturbed by the fact that Mr. Baldoni spoke about his pornography addiction, divulged information about his sex life, made derogatory, degrading, and sexual comments, described his own genitalia, improvised intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively in advance, and added graphic content to the script, including multiple new scenes with nudity, a chaotic and violative birthing scene for which he cast his friend as her OBGYN, among other things. Ugh. Let's just be real clear here that Blake Lively was never alone on set. She had her security guard. She had her nanny. She had her assistant. She had PR. She had PAs. So she had production assistants as well. She had her own assistants brought in. She had probably Leslie Sloan was there. I mean, the list goes on. She was never alone. And there was so much security on sets. And I bet there was so much security around her trailer, including her own bodyguard. She was never alone on set. Okay. Miss Lively was not the only one who was uncomfortable on set, and Mr. Baldoni and Wayfair knew it. After Mr. Baldoni learned that he had caused Ms. Lively and others to feel uncomfortable, he turned his TED Talk and feminist advocacy on its head. He did not hold himself and other men accountable or take his own advice to be confident enough to hold their anguish and actually believe them, but instead used a louder voice to silence Ms. Lively and anyone else who might speak up. That louder voice, amplified by publicists, crisis manager, digital media teams, and lawyers, has sought to mislead the public into believing that Ms. Lively did not experience sexual harassment by portraying her as a powerful bully. No, Blake, you portrayed yourself that way. All your old interviews, your behavior, your actions during the press tour, silencing creators, subpoenaing over 107 people. You are the bully. You've done it. You've done it yourself. You and your husband made very clear that you are going to come off as a big, powerful dragon, okay? Who fabricated claims of misconduct in order to seize control of Mr. Baldoni's movie. The narrative is false and nonsensical on its own terms, completely at odds with Mr. Baldoni's confession to his crisis manager on August 30th, 2024, that Miss Lively is the kind of person that genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. I want y'all to remember this because this is the meanest thing that Justin Baldoni ever said about Blake Lively. In all of the texts so far that we've seen, the only thing he has ever said poorly about Blake Lively is that line right there. That she is the kind of person that generally believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. And is breathtakingly cynical coming from a man whose public brand is built upon a pro-feminist facade that urges others to listen and believe women. Miss Lively was not alone in complaining about Mr. Baldoni, not in connection with some imagined power play for the control of the film in 2024. There's proof, babe. Like, you can't deny that you stole this man's movie. That is undeniable. I don't care. That's undeniable. You literally stole the movie, period. Mr. Baldoni acknowledged the complaint in writing at the time. He knew that women other than Miss Lively were uncomfortable and had complained about his behavior. On May 24th, 2023, Miss Lively confided in a text to a woman who was a mutual friend of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. I was going to invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them. I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried. Further in the exchange, Miss Lively describes Miss Baldoni and Mr. Heath as creeps. Like, keep your hormones to yourself. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking. Clowns. Clowns, creeps. That's how she's talking about them already in May of 2023 when the filming just began. Undermining them, insulting them. Now let's go back to what Justin Baldoni negatively had to say about Blake Lively, that she's the type of person that always thinks she's right. But yet during filming, at the beginning phase of filming, Blake Lively is texting other people that know Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, we all think this is Liz Plank, calling them clowns and creeps. So we already know what she thinks of him, how she's behaving behind their back, insulting them and undermining them, and I bet that's what she did to the entire cast. And misery loves company. So the one female co-star that she's going to keep talking about, I believe misery loves company. It was two mean girls who just were like on a power trip, did not like these guys, did not respect them. And I think Blake Lively was equally as jealous because she was nobody. She's just an actor, and she sees this guy, an independent actor, doing it on his own, making this huge movie while her husband is off making his own movie, while her best friend Taylor Swift is off touring the world, and she's just here. And I think she was extremely bitter about it, also with mixed emotions that she was probably extremely turned on by Justin Baldoni. A few days later, on May 26, 2023, Miss Lively reported her concerns regarding unwelcome and inappropriate behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. the chief executive officer and Wayfarer and producer of the film, to Sony employee Angie Giannotti, the film's representative for its distributor Sony Pictures. Over the following 3 days in May 2023, another female cast member reported her own concerns regarding Mr. Baldoni's unwelcome behavior to both Ms. Giannotti and one of the film's producers. Notwithstanding the female cast member's considerable reservations with coming forward, she nonetheless spoke up and conveyed her feelings that the work on the film was suffering as a result of Baldoni's behavior. Ms. Giannotti shared those concerns with Wayfarer. On June 1st, 2023, Mr. Baldoni responded to that female cast member in writing, acknowledging that he was aware of her concerns and that adjustments would be made. We still haven't seen this complaint. We don't know who it is. We don't know what it was about. A lot of people are reporting that it was that complaint about talking about the sanctity of motherhood, which is nuts if that's what it is. And that's what she's using here to try to make it sound like it was, of sexual harassment or sexual in nature. Notwithstanding that promise, Wayfarer took no actions to investigate the reported conduct, nor did it implement any productions at the time. Just 1 week later, on June 8th, 2023, the same female cast member told Miss Lively about her growing concerns with the conditions on set, that she found it difficult to talk to Mr. Baldoni. Miss Lively responded that, "I know, I find it really hard to speak to him. I try to cover it with busyness, but I'm not sure that covers what's going on." Later, another female cast member confided to Miss Lively that she also too felt uncomfortable on set. All of this occurred and was documented in writing almost 1 year before the editing of the film began. There was only two other co-stars on the set. So when she keeps saying another female, I think she's talking about the same people and just making it seem like every woman that stepped on the set felt like that, because Justin Baldoni's wife was on the set too. So I think this is just gossip and mean girl behavior. Also, Blake, you can't come up and say that you were an executive producer, so you were able to do all of these things, including the edit, including all of the things that you did, but then took no responsibility for how the set was ran. You can't have it both ways. I'm so sorry. Catch 22. If you want to be able to say that you had a right to do all of the things that you did because you were also a producer credit, then you also have a right to keep everyone safe on set. Okay? October 13th, 2023, Miss Lively confided in a text to a female cast member that she was dreading going back to our film. "I keep getting hits of the experiences really upsetting ways." The female cast member expressed empathy for Miss Lively and confirmed similar feelings. Then why did you go back? And I know it's oh, don't blame the victim, but this is BS, because really, it just seems like her and this one actress were just mean girls. We're just gossipers. I think that they were well above their head. I think they thought this film was beneath them because it was an indie, and that they didn't have any respect for the filmmakers, honestly, or for the art, or for passion projects. Because remember, Blake is always used to working on, big projects, and her husband, obviously, right? And what's important here is that this happened on October 13th, where she's confiding with her co-star about not going back to set, but there was a meeting of the Dragons which happened on October 17th, which included Sean Levy, Bradley Cooper, Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds, and Blake Lively. So if she's already talking to other co-stars about this, then she was definitely talking about it to all of these other dragons that were in the room, and that's why they're being subpoenaed as well, and witnesses, and the Wayfarer people would like to depose them, and they have every right to. Based on Wayfarer's complete failure to investigate or address any of the complaints conveyed by Miss Lively and others, Miss Lively decided to speak up and require that Sony and Wayfarer do a set of productions to ensure a set safe for all cast and crew. Interesting that she would bring Sony back into this, because then she says that when she talked to Angie Giannotti, they said that they couldn't do anything because Wayfarer was the one making the movie. They were just the distributor. But then why then would she then bring Sony into it? It doesn't make sense what she's saying. But it is what it is, okay? That's when she got them to sign the protections for a return to productions. To ease the onset behavior of Mr. Baldoni and Heath, these provisions were designed to remedy the misconduct that Miss Lively and others had reported earlier that year. One of those provisions required an all-hands meeting to confirm and approve a plan for implementations of certain protections that would be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Miss Lively, her employees, and all cast and crew moving forward. Another provision required that an experienced producer, Todd Black, be brought in to oversee production and ensure that the requested protections were adhered to for the safety of all cast and crew members. Importantly, none of the requested productions were tied in any way to Miss Lively's creative input in the film and were made months before any discussions regarding the cut of the film. At that moment in time, with the completion of the film uncertain, Miss Lively did not request nor did she receive any creative rights, editing rights, credits, or any other role on the film beyond her role as an actress and executive producer. Then why did she take over the movie? If she felt so unsafe around these people, when the movie wrapped and she moved on to another simple favor, why would she claw her way back and force her way back into the editing room and take full control of the film? It doesn't make sense. Answer those questions. Everything she requested, as laid out in the document, was designed to ensure the safety and well-being of the cast and crew. In other words, at the precise moment in time when Miss Lively had maximum leverage prior to resuming production, she did not use that leverage to obtain anything other than protections for herself and others to ensure a safe work environment for all. The notion that she did all of this as some sort of Byzantine plan to take control of the movie at some future point, which she did not do in any event, is absurd, and there is not a shred of evidence to support it. Oh, you think we stupid? We find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. So when she got Wayfair and Sony to sign this, Wayfair was like, they wanted to change things. They wanted, because alarms were going off. They were like, we know exactly what's happening. She's trying to do this. She's trying to make it seem like there's all of this sexual harassment going on. They were trying to change things. They even said that prior to this protections, no nudity, no sexual scenes, no nothing was even shot with Blake Lively. So for her to make all of these demands about all of this stuff was unnecessary, because prior to this, there was one scene which she directed, okay? There was nothing else of the film. So it was like they already knew alarms were going off. But Blake and her team and her counsel said, you need to sign as is. You cannot make any changes. And they said, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. And she thinks that's some sort of like agreement from Wayfair that they admit to sexual harassment. But it's like, nah, girl, they just want to move on, okay? It literally says, you know, it's great. Okay, essential for everyone. Let's go, like whatever. Let's just get this movie over with. And in that meeting, when she's talking so big about Todd Black and how they had to bring in another producer, after the meeting on January 4th, because Ryan Reynolds acted like a psycho, he wanted to quit. And they had to pay him way more money to stay on because he wanted to wipe his hands of it. Because he had said, either him or Angie have come out, one of them, because it's an unknown source, said that a big-time producer said that they have never, in their 20-plus years of being in the industry, ever hear someone speak to another person the way Ryan Reynolds degraded Justin Baldoni in that meeting. Everyone that was in that meeting on January 4th was Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Miss Giannatti, Mr. Sachs, Todd Black, Miss Lively, and Miss Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, who Miss Lively chose as her representative, a choice which Miss Lively had the right to exercise under the November agreement. Given that the meeting was about repeated sexual harassment and other disturbing behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, this already doesn't make sense why you chose your husband, and I'm going to tell you why. Because she already had a makeup artist fired in her past. This was during the whole Harvey Weinstein thing, where she said that she was complaining about this makeup artist because he kept putting lipstick on her with her finger, and then said that one time she caught him taking pictures of her while she was sleeping on set. She reported the behavior. The studio wouldn't do anything about it. And the only time they stepped up and did something about it was when she brought in her lawyers. So knowing that, unless that was all a lie, I don't know. It wouldn't be surprising, because she was getting so much backlash from supporting Harvey Weinstein that she came out and was like, look, I've been through it too. I've been through it too on set. But if that was true, and this is true, then she knows that the only way to get them to listen is to have your lawyers present. So why would you bring your husband? I don't know any woman or any person that brings their significant other in to deal with their work issues. You bring a union rep, you bring your lawyer, you bring your representative, your husband, so that he can scream at other men. I mean, at your boss. These were your bosses. This is a work contract. And you brought your husband to act a damn fool, full well knowing that if this did happen to you in the past, the only way the studio listened is through your lawyers. That doesn't make sense. But then we go in, and it's funny because when you reread this thing, it's hilarious because it's interesting that they keep saying it's a 17-point demand, but then they published a 30-point demand. And it all starts with no more, no more, no more, no more, as in further mocking Justin Baldoni and Wayfair with the No More organization. I mean, how much gusto do you have to belittle a DV organization? Tell me, because I don't got it in me. There's ain't no way. Okay, so this was so gross, but when you reread it, it makes me really think, and now I fully believe that Ryan Reynolds wrote this. Ryan Reynolds 100% wrote this list of demands, because ain't no way that they're talking about speaking to Blake Lively's dead father, not being able to sage the set anymore. It's just, there's so many things that I'm like, what the heck does this have to do with sexual harassment? It's kind of crazy. I've highlighted some of the stuff, but even just as an actor, why would she be able to have pre-approval over young Lily's scenes? You're not in those scenes, Blake. Why would she be able to have pre-approval over a scene shot with her bodied stunt double? That's not the way it works. Generally, you sign a contract that lets the studio know that they can use your image and likeness and edit it however they choose in the editing room, okay? You don't get control over that. Your job is to show up, be in character, know your lines, be open to perform, and at the end of the day, when you're wrapped, you're wrapped. So the fact that she was asking for so much crazy stuff, including them not being able to sage the set, what? Okay. But then it also does say as well on number 20, no more entering, attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking Blake Lively to enter her trailer. Girl, there's text where you invite them in your trailer when you're pumping. Okay. And they get into that. But like, how do they know? Like, one day you're inviting them and then the next day, no more entering. It's like, girl, you just like flipped a switch, you know? And this is why I think Ryan Reynolds is completely in control of this whole thing and wrote out these lists, because I think Blake Lively was getting home and she was telling them about set. She was telling them about how great it is, how close they're getting, how awesome Justin is, like how close they're doing. And Ryan, I think, probably blew a freaking gasket. And what's interesting is then she says, and I will never forget this, because hello, you have an issue, you bring it up, you sign to say that things will get better, that won't happen again, that conduct is unacceptable, and then they stop. It doesn't happen. Everything else is Gucci after that. So where is, Anyway, let's just remember that for sexual harassment, it has to be extremely pervasive and it has to be subjective and objective in nature, okay? After this January 4th meeting, Blake continues her charade, her parade of undermining and insulting Baldoni and turning all of the cast against him, just like she did in Gossip Girl with Penn Badgley, because then this was all about hugging. On January 14th, she assures another cast member, a female cast member, you don't have to hug anyone this time. He won't touch you, or shouldn't. I think that he or Jamie will. Or professional set, and we're getting to good work. Blake, let's be real, because there's videos of you on them streets running onto set and you openly hugging Justin Baldoni when you get there. You don't look trapped in those videos, sweetheart, okay? There's literally videos of you hugging him. There's videos of your husband on set hugging cast and crew. And when we talk about your dead father, let's talk about the iHeartRadio with Michelle Marone, who talks about how you guys never talked on Another Simple Favor. Really, he was kind of scared and intimidated with you. And the only way that you guys became friends was because you guys made jokes about your dead parents. So it's okay for him to do it. But when Justin does it, it's crossing the line. She still swears by the fact that she was just following the marketing plan that was delivered by the film's distributor, Sony. Yeah, it was all Sony's idea, not Maximum Effort. Oh, no. Of course, it was Sony. Sony approved her washing people's hair and selling alcohol and like really like shopping around her businesses and her clothes and her rings and her best friend's fashion and all of that. Yeah. Making fun of DV. I can go because that one PR interview that they did with Ryan Reynolds acting like a jealous husband, and like showing off Brandon's butt and like all of Gigi Hadid's $600 sweaters in there. Don't get me started, okay? And then they keep talking about this email that Jamie Heath sent after the film's promotion where he does quote that it's brilliant and fantastic. Heath described the marketing film as brilliant and fantastic in that email. Yeah, he does say, hey, it's great and it's going great. However, we need to listen to the audience. They're not vibing with it. Grab your florals. They're not really liking it. It's called being kind and nice and not wanting to insult and call people out. You usually feed them like a few compliments and then you get down to the issue. It's very strange that they're saying like, well, Jamie agreed with it. He said this. What about the rest of Jamie's email? That same email where he said, hey, but it's not really working. We need to change the narrative. In the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. To that end, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image as described in further detail below. Other cast members contemporaneously observed Mr. Baldoni's pivot as it was happening. For example, a female cast member lamented to Miss Lively in a text on August 10th, 2024 that Baldoni's marketing pivot was jeopardizing the success of the film and opened that the pivot would not work because it would eventually come out that Mr. Baldoni was using domestic violent commentary to cover up his own behavior. He can do what he wants. He's the filmmaker. He's the director. He can market the film however he wants to market the film. It doesn't matter. He owns the rights to the movie. And for you and this actress, who I already think I know it's the same actress that you guys bullied him on set about, this is just gossip. You don't have a say in how a director chooses to market his film, period. You are an actor. You have a contract. You do your job. That's it. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. The plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfair's co-founder, core chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Soritz, who divulged to a witness at his film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024, that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family. Why do you think he was saying that at the premiere? Why do you think he was saying that he was fully prepared to defend himself at the premiere? Is it possible because of your own actions in the editing room, taking them out off the movie, removing them from Book Bonanza, and then having them sit in a freaking basement during said premiere, that they were like, you know what? If they do anything else after this, if they come after us any further than the harassment and the bullying that they've already done, yes, I will destroy them. I will definitely defend myself, as they should. Then they go into these quotes and they say some things that Steve Soritz said about Hamas and Israel, not just jumping forward because it's so ridiculous. I just like, ew. And every time that they bring up things that Steve Soritz said, he always says it's in defense, you know? So underlined even in the footnote, it was necessary to defend Baldoni, Wayfarer Studios, and himself, defend themselves. Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfarer associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Miss Lively exercising her legally protected right to speak up about their misconduct on set. You never spoke up about it. You didn't speak up about it the entire press tour. You were talking about your hair care line, you were talking about your Betty Boos line, and you were talking about all of your fashion, your rings, your dresses, your shoes, and all of your friends and Taylor Swift. Okay? So this whole thing is like nuts because had your reputation kept going, had your hair care and booze line taken off, you would have allowed this to keep going. And what does that say about you championing for other women that if this were the case and they are these repeated sexually harassers, that you were just going to let them freely go into the world and do that to other girls and other women on other sets. It doesn't make sense. You never, ever exercised your legally protected right to speak up about the misconduct on set. Other than, I guess, if you're using the 17-point demand, which has already been debunked. Do you know? So they go into what they were hired to do: full Reddit, full social account takedowns, social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. This is the way to be a fully 100% protective. Creation of social media engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track. All of this will be mostly untraceable. The plan went well beyond standard crisis PR and is known now as astroturfing, the practice of publishing opinions or comments based on the internet, in the media, etc., that appear to come from ordinary members of the public and actually come from a particular company or political group. Funny, because also all of the people that you subpoenaed are actually real people. They are members of the public and have public opinions on public filings. Ms. Lively obtained the communications set forth in her original complaint through legal process, including a civil subpoena served to Jones Works. So she's been watching, girls. They are talking about Van Zandt here, and they want it known that it was legal. Oh yeah, it was super legal. In statements to the media and in public filings in this court, meaning the content creators that called her out about the Van Zandt, she's coming. This is directed at the content creators who made a filing in the courts and brought up Van Zandt. Certain of the defendants and their counsel have basically claimed that Miss Lively and her counsel engaged in criminal alteration of these materials. That is false. JonesWorks produced the communications to Miss Lively in connection with a lawful subpoena, and the documents included within this complaint are attached in the format in which they were produced subject to the subpoena, with limited redaction of names and phone numbers to protect third parties' privacy. At all times, Miss Lively has understood the produced documents and communications to have been lawfully obtained, maintained, and produced by JonesWorks. Miss Lively included experts of communications as produced, which on information and belief were produced in the data extractor programs Cellbrite, default font and format, including, for example, the absence of text emojis in the production format. Images such as emojis, when available in a preserved screenshot, for example, were attached as produced. It shows emojis. Period. I've done videos on this. I've covered it. I've had to print off my own text messages and redact all my information. And we can go back and look at all of the text messages. No, girl, you definitely altered those text messages. You pulled from it what you needed in your CRD complaint, as well as the New York Times story. And the subpoena to JonesWorks was unlawful. Period. Not ever going to be convinced otherwise. I know too much about it to know that what you did was immoral and unethical, and your law firm and their counsel need to be held accountable. On August 2nd, 2024, TAG circulated a scenario planning document to Mr. Baldoni and Heath and others, which described preparations and strategy should Miss Lively and her team make her grievance public. Miss Lively had a less than favorable reputation, explore planting stories about weaponizing feminism, misleadingly blaming Miss Lively for production's member job losses. Initially, Mr. Baldoni expressed concern that TAG's written plan was insufficient aggressive to protect him. The most important part of this is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. Of course, Mr. Baldoni wants to feel like Miss Lively can be buried. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Look at all of the horrible things she's done to them. Like, there's only so much forgiveness before I'm like, no. Go for it. Pull the plug, okay? Because you had that man sitting in a freaking basement. That's all I need to know. You changed his poster. You took his name off the freaking poster. Like, girl, you are lucky that you were dealing with such kind people like Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath and Steve Storitz, because had it been anyone else, first of all, we wouldn't be here, because you wouldn't have the freaking balls to do what you did against anyone who would stand up to you. You would never do this to a director who was a little bit more known and bigger, and never. You would never. You looked at them like little insignificant pieces that you could just move around and take advantage of and bully, and that's what you did. A few days later, on August 5th, Mr. Baldoni set the narrative for the social media campaign right. So he was like, this is something that we would need. As in, hey, If she starts getting crazy again, these are things that we would need, because let's go for it. In the weeks and months that followed, with the direction and approval of Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, the team engaged in a sophisticated, coordinated, and well-financed retaliation plan. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis managers spinning stories. They also retained a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles and beyond to create, seed, promote, and engage with content that appeared to be the authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums. The Baldoni Wayfarer team would then feed pieces of this manufactured content to unwitting reporters, helping them to make content go viral in order to influence public opinions and therefore cause an organic pile-on. That's what she thinks happened. To safeguard against the risk of Miss Lively ever revealing the truth about Mr. Baldoni, the Baldoni Wayfarer team created, planted, amplified, and boosted content designed to eviscerate Miss Lively's credibility. They engaged in the same technique to bolster Mr. Baldoni's credibility and suppress any negative content about him. On August 10th, the day after the release of the film, Miss Nathan's team reported that they had started to see a shift on social, due largely to his team's effort to shift the narrative against Miss Lively. These texts are definitely going to have to be something that they answer to when they get into deposition, because it does look like there was some sort of campaign here that Jed was part of, or that he knows the shift. But yeah, that's why there's X's around it, because it does not look good. This text from Jen Abel does not look great. The same day, but also I've spoken about the publicists here, all of them were playing mean games, including Leslie Sloan, including Stephanie motherfucking Jones, okay? The same day, Miss Nathan noted that part of the shift, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. Later in the same text conversation, Miss Nathan and Miss Abel described the shift in social media, which they had earlier admitted Mr. Wallace and his team had causing Miss Abel to conclude that Miss Lively deserved what she was happening on social media because she had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and declined to do publicity with him. Yeah, that's what happens when you do like a mass unfollowing, which your bestie Taylor Swift is really used to doing. People notice when you literally refuse to have him at the PR, when you replace him at Book Bonanza, when you have him in a basement at the premiere. People are going to ask questions. People are going to notice. And then people turn to how you're acting and how Justin's acting, and they make a decision. Okay? Of course, this was going to happen by your own actions, Blake, right? Like, obviously. Defendants have admitted that on August 12th, in the midst of a massive sentiment shift on social media that was engulfing Miss Lively and others with a flood of negative comments, Wayfarer was asked to issue a statement to help correct the situation by accepting accountability for the production it oversaw. Issue a statement? You and your husband told that man to make a public apology and take full accountability for things that they didn't need to, didn't have to, just so that your reputation could be saved. You could have saved your own reputation by making your own statement, apologizing for how you handled the PR, apologizing for how you were mocking DV. You could have changed. You could have made a statement and held yourself accountable. But instead, again, you played the victim. Less than 1 week later, they again bragged about how they shut down stories alleging HR complaints on set. And where were those stories coming from that they were having to shut down? Where were those stories coming from? Blake Lively's camp. Right. So Blake Lively's camp was putting out stories that Justin fat shamed her, that the cast and crew hate him, that all of this stuff was going on, and they were having to combat and defend against those stories. Where were those stories coming from? Blake Lively's camp. Now Blake Lively in her amended complaint is saying that she reported to Leslie Sloan not to do anything. She told everyone not to say anything, not to do anything. Nothing was coming from her camp. Girl, come on. The judge may be in your pocket, but we're not. Okay, that was mean. I don't want to come after the judge, but also, how can you not with some of the things that have been done, right? Like, ooh, makes you think. As their own words reveal, the purpose of the social media plan has two folds. It aimed to A, conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Wayfarer, and B, to retaliate against Ms. Lively by battering her image, harming her businesses, and causing her and her family severe emotional harm. Millions of people, including many reporters and influencers who saw these planted stories, social media posts, and other online content, had no idea they were unwitting consumers of crisis PR, astroturfing, and digital retaliation campaign created and funded by Baldoni and Wayfair to hurt Miss Lively. In just days, the retaliation campaign had resulted in the viral spread of hateful, threatening, and derogatory content directed at Miss Lively, her family, and other female cast members, as well as harassment and cyberbullying of the same. Online hate and vitriol found its way onto the social media accounts of much of the cast of the film. Miss Lively, Mr. Reynolds, and numerous businesses associated with them. By August 14th, 2024, female cast texted Miss Lively expressing feelings concerned and helplessness about the online narrative. A different female cast member wrote to Miss Lively on August 14th as to whether she knew if Sony could help her address the cyberbullying. As described further below, many individuals and businesses other than Miss Lively herself began to experience vitriol, harassment, and cyberbullying around this time, demonstrating the obvious falsity of defendants' self-serving insistence since Miss Lively's first complaint in this action, that they engaged in no proactive measures, and that this viral spread of online hatred was entirely the result of Miss Lively's own remarks and actions during the campaign of the film. Yes, they are. Indeed, these facts are not in dispute. Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfair parties have already admitted that Miss Lively raised concerns multiple times. They admitted that they created a plan in case she made her grievances public, in which they planned to plant stories suggesting Miss Lively was a bullying and weaponizing feminism. They admitted that their team was able to bury anyone. They admitted that they bragged and laughed at how negatively the narrative had shifted against Miss Lively and how successful they were at confusing people. They admitted that within hours of laying out their plan, they started to see a shift on social media due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative. And they did all of this despite the knowledge that Miss Lively genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is just unjust. Okay, and then they say that it's impossible, despite all of this, the claims the plan was never implemented, blah, 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 blah. Like, they're lying. How can they have not implemented the plan that they had? So that is precisely what occurred, starting the moment that Miss Lively sent a cease and desist letter to defendants on December 20th, 2024, including with a copy of her administrative complaint filed with the California Civil Rights Department. Upon receiving the cease and desist letter, defendants leaked the complaint to certain hand-selected publications to get ahead of it, gave numerous statements to the press, including blatantly false and defamatory factual allegations, and began a near-daily media and social media blitz aimed at discrediting Miss Lively's longtime publicist, Mr. Reynolds, Disney, the New York Times, and more. I can't believe they actually think that the Wayfair people leaked the CRD complaint when we know that she gave it to the New York Times. A long time ago, they were creating this story since October. It's like so crazy. On information and belief, all defendants actively participated in this enhanced retaliation campaign. Defendants' counsel threatened numerous lawsuits to sue Miss Lively and others into oblivion, and proceeded to file 4 lawsuits in 3 jurisdictions with fantastical damages of hundreds of millions of dollars in each. On information and belief, defendants' counsel has threatened both fact witnesses, neutral commentators, and publications with lawsuits for doing nothing more than speaking out or publicly reporting unfavorable information about the defendants. That is a huge, huge claim against the counsel of Wayfair to say that that's what they're doing. Wow. So that's just kind of like the beginning, and then they go into as laid out in the amended complaint. Okay, for sake of time, because this video is probably gonna be like an hour and a half. I'm so sorry, guys. I try to keep it around an hour, but there's a lot to get into. So then they go into all of the parties. Yeah, that's fine. In particular, at least during this period when Miss Nathan helped the other Wayfair parties retain Mr. Wallace in street relation, Miss Nathan maintained a residence in New York. So they're really trying to say like they were all part of New York, They really get into everyone's businesses. And he filed a statement of conversion with the Secretary of State of the state of California to convert into a general stock corporation named Street Relation. Street Relation LLC filed incorporation documents in California in 2007, and in a June 2007 filing described itself as a communications, marketing, and brand media consultation company with Mr. Wallace as its sole manager. By the time it was named as a defendant in Miss Lively's amended complaint in February 18th, 2025, Street Relations had incorporated in Texas. So I guess they're really trying to get him in like New York or California law, right? And bring him back into the case. But he is saying that, hey, he's incorporated in Texas, so you have to fight it in Texas. But she's saying that like previous to the February 18th, he was incorporated in California. All of the defendants They all participated in a civil conspiracy, and on numerous occasions, individual co-conspirators engaged in overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy that had sufficient contacts with New York to subject the co-conspirator to jurisdiction of New York. Because the Wallace defendants committed a tortious act without the state causing injury to person or property within the state, expected or reasonably should have expected the act to have consequences in New York and derived substantial revenue from interstate commerce, including blank Wallace defendants who were aware of their co-conspirators' New York-based overt acts. So they're saying like Wallace knew about the sexual harassment, he knew what happened on set, and he was also a conspirator to cover it up. Yeah, he knew all about it. They go into how everything happened in New York, what all of these people did and said, all happened in New York. Everything's in New York. Please, 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 judge. Please don't let Jed go. They talk about Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath of Wayfair engaged in inappropriate, unwelcome behavior towards Miss Lively and others on set. Most of this stuff we've already known. Mr. Baldoni, in his own words, he was the leader who sat at the top of his totem pole, while Sony was the distributor releasing the film. Wayfair was responsible for the production, and Wayfair was led by Mr. Baldoni. Yes, he was the producer and the director and owned the rights to the film and the lead. So yes, he was the man at the top. And if you didn't like it, call it a day. But that's usually how it works on every single film set, Blake. Baldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploiting the lack of controls on set to behave inappropriately. So we will see that because, of course, they're going to have to give shooting schedules. They're going to have to see when things were set, what was on set. Now, the Wayfair people are saying that they have all of the footage. They have video footage. They have B-roll. Cameras were rolling. And think about all the cast and crew and PAs and assistant directors and like hair and makeup and wardrobe. This will be proven or not proven. And I just love that she just keeps bringing up how he bit and sucked on her lip. For instance, Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Miss Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take that were not pre-approved in the script and without an intimacy coordinator there. But there is literally video of Blake Lively sucking on that man's lower lip. Okay? She changed kisses in the scenes too. And now she wants to come back and say, oh, just because she improvised kisses of the set, kissing of kiss scenes, that's fine because it said kissing in the thing. But then you're getting mad at him for prolonging kissing, changing kissing, things like that. Girl, no teeth Lively, you bit that man's lip. Okay, there's a video of it. I've done a video of it. There's evidence, okay, of you altering kisses and sucking on that man's lower lip, biting it. Okay, no teeth. Okay, so what? Again, what is it? What's going on? This just seems like if it was any other actor, there wouldn't have been a problem. But she had issues with Justin, either because her husband was extremely jealous because she had feelings for him or because she did not respect him. Or maybe both. Then they go into the dance montage, you know, and it's funny how they're wording it. While filming the scene was meant to be used in the film, music was intended to play over the action. Nonetheless, yeah, because you didn't think there was any audio and you were just going to show the dance montage and you could say exactly what was going on, but now we know the truth of it. So this whole dance montage thing is a joke, saying that she was trapped. None of this took place while Baldoni was in character as Ryle because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to in the script. Neither of you were in character. He was definitely still in character trying to do it because you can tell as soon as he calls cut girl, he's back to directing. Like you can tell that he was in the scene with you trying to get the shot, as well as if you really pay attention to the audio version of that dance montage, there is a clip in there where he says, yeah, we'll do it exactly like how we just talked about it. What? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it is in there where they discussed that they had just talked about what was going to happen in the scene. So I don't want to hear anything about, oh, you were being trapped. You were so trapped. Give me a break. The dance montage, if you watch it and you feel like that was anything than two actors and a director getting really frustrated with an actor because she wasn't listening, I don't know. But maybe a lot of y'all haven't been on set and haven't filmed a movie and haven't done these kind of scenes, because what I saw is just a director trying to direct an actor who was not listening. This is where she says in the footnote, the fact that Miss Lively varied the number of kisses in other scenes in which the kissing was scripted in advance does not justify Mr. Baldoni's improvisations and his attempt to add graphic scenes into the film. Mr. Baldoni acted without planning, without consent, and grossly outside of acceptable boundaries. He made it personal and repeated even after Miss Lively spoke up and became defensive and dismissive when challenged, no matter how politely she mentioned it. Their problem, Wayfair, is that they hired divas. They hired big stars. They hired Blake Lively. Because you know how many hundreds of thousands of actresses would have, number one, slayed this role. And number two, would have been open to improvise, to get into character, to play, to really dive into the darkest parts of Lily and into her trauma. And like, this would never have happened. Their biggest issue is that they hired Blake Lively. Mr. Baldoni's advantage. Miss Lively even referred to Mr. Baldoni as a sociopath at one point during the exchange. As a joke, like it doesn't say that now she really thought that. In January of 2025, the defendants, through their attorney, Brian Freeman, released this video to the media, apparently hoping that the mere act of releasing the footage would mislead the public into believing that it shows nothing abnormal or improper. But the footage by itself corroborates Miss Lively's description of the scene to the letter. To the letter! That is not just Miss Lively's view. And then they go into this woman, Mia Shatter, who is an intimacy coordinator, who is not on the set of this film, who is not an expert to speak on these matters. Okay, they just go off about all of the things that she said and how she's a pro Blakesy and believes Blake just from watching the dance montage. How is this important? She's not an expert. Okay, it's crazy. She's just someone who did interviews. Obviously, she wants more work because she's an intimacy coordinator, and those things only popped up only a few years ago. Neither Ms. Lively nor any of her agents had any contract with her at the time. Yeah, okay, it's very important that you say that. Nonetheless, on information and belief, Mr. Freeman sent letters threatening potential legal claims to both Ms. Shatter and the Hollywood Reporter following the publications of this article. Ms. Lively did not refuse to meet with the film's intimacy coordinator. She said she did not have to meet with them before production started because there were no intimate scenes in the immediate future, so they could talk once production began. Yeah, there wasn't any intimate scenes until phase 2. So, okay. Mr. Baldoni did not have consent to rewrite and add sex scenes, even if he did so with an intimacy coordinator. The purpose of the intimacy coordinator is to work with the actors to establish the appropriate boundaries based on what is in the script, not to rewrite the script. The script is always being rewritten. You show up to set on the day and you prepared like an entire scene and you like have all of your notes and they came up to you and they give you like a different color paper because your scene has changed and it's always being rewritten. Scripts are always being rewritten. You have the foundation of the script, but like be prepared to toss that out the window and play because scripts are always being rewritten. Mr. Baldoni inserted improvised gratuitous sexual contact and or scenes involving nudity. After Miss Lively signed on to the movie based on a draft of the script, you signed on based on a draft of the script. So it's a draft of the script or it was the final shooting script. You can't have it both ways. Again, Mr. Baldoni, without Miss Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Miss Lively was to orgasm on camera. Pretty sure it's in the book. Even if it isn't, it's a movie, it's a film. If you weren't, like, again, if you don't have the depth or the realm and weren't comfortable doing this, you shouldn't have done it. What was really funny is that you went on now to do Another Simple Favor where you were totally fine orgasming on camera to yourself. So, you know, nothing to say here. And then she's saying that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath suddenly pressured her into simulating full nudity. This is the birthing scene. The birthing scene is a joke. Okay, I just can't believe it. I would also love to know when this was shot and get a shooting schedule because I just can't with this because it literally says she compromised that she would be naked below the chest down. And then in her footnote says generally nudity from the waist below utilizes a small piece of nude fabric, which is what she had, which is all what most actors wear. So it's fine for most actors, not fine for Blake Lively. Blah, blah, blah. The whole birthing scene, I just don't even want to talk about it because I think it's absolutely humiliating that she's still going on, that this was, Steve Sorrett showed up on set because she was going to have her legs open. And the actor Adam Moonshine was just a friend when we all know now he is a classically trained actor who was cast and a working actor on the set. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. But she felt that it was invasive and humiliating. Miss Lively thought that, okay, yeah. And then the birthing, Jamie Heath showed her birthing scene because they were preparing for a birthing scene. And she thought that he was showing her porn. Ridiculous. She even said here that her assistant was with her. She was never alone on set, guys. Her assistant was always there. Mr. Baldoni added a detailed scene to the film in which the underage version of Miss Lively's character loses her virginity. In both the book and the script. You didn't read the book? Oh, wow. Well, at least we know that your lawyers read the book. In both the book and the script for the film, there was no sex scene. Instead, the details about this moment were left to the audience's imagination. It's a movie. It's a movie, right? Mr. Baldoni added in considerable details, which was particularly concerning to Miss Lively, given that Mr. Baldoni's other behavior and directorial choices as detailed in this complaint. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're not even in the scene, okay? Miss Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Mr. Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actors and said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but this was hot. Did you guys practice before? The actors didn't have a problem with it because they have done multiple interviews before Blake got her fingers on them, before she clawed them and groomed them. They did interviews as well as Isabel Ferreira saying how amazing it was on set, how professional it was, how amazing the intimacy coordinators were there. They felt safe. They felt protected. So then they go into how Justin Baldoni shared with Miss Lively that he had been sexually abused by a former girlfriend. At the end of the story, Mr. Baldoni shared that it had caused him to re-examine his past. He then said, did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No. Yeah. Do you know how many positions women have been in where a guy just keeps asking and keeps asking? And I bet there are many men watching this right now who have done that. I mean, guys, glass houses, okay? It's like he's changed. He's recognized after his own essay that there is a line. And it is, it's just, I just hate the way that she just brings the things up like this. People can change, and consent was not always black and white. I'm going to just say that now. And to keep bringing up his past mistakes, which he is very public about and talks about change and the importance of change, it is, to me, is so sad and it's so gross. But in fact, Mr. Baldoni publicly acknowledges that he has struggled with consent. He had crossed boundaries and lines in my teens and 20s with respect to obtaining consent, a flaw which he blamed on his early exposure to pornography. I don't see anything wrong with change, especially when you're young and in your 20s and your hormones are going crazy and you're out, Mr. Baldoni would often reference pornography to Miss Lively. Give me a break. It was an incredible invasive of privacy to discuss any aspect of her intimate life with the cast and crew. Okay, she said that she told him that she never watched porn, and then he went and told the entire cast and crew that she never watched porn. Mr. Baldoni engaged in other behaviors that were shocking and emotionally distressing, but not too emotional distressing. Only garden variety. Not super shocking and emotionally distressing. Garden variety distressing. And it was not, as defendants have since claimed, limited to Mr. Baldoni claiming to pray for her father. Then she goes on about the stupid story about her father, which I thought was really sweet and cute. And if someone told me that story about my dead father, I would be like, it's a sign from the universe. Oh my God. She goes on to say something like, if you see my dad, tell him he owes me $40. And Justin stops and puts his hand on his heart and reaches into his pocket and is like, you're not going to believe this, but when I put on my pants today, I found $40 in it. That's incredible. The connection, the signs, I think that I thought that was a magical moment, but Blake, of course, felt that it was very emotionally distressing. Mr. Baldoni referenced to women in the workplace as sexy. Let's get F off, okay? The claims display a stunning lack of understanding as to how context informs the appropriate versus. This is, an interesting sentence I found. Defendants have claimed that Mr. Baldoni's description of female cast members as sexy was justified by the fact that Miss Lively also sometimes used the word sexy on set. This claim displays a stunning lack of understanding as to how context informs the appropriate versus inappropriate use of language. The word sexy is not inherently inappropriate, but it can be inappropriate in certain contexts. It's so it's fine in some contexts, not fine in other contexts. Blake can use it, Justin can't. whatever. Mr. Baldoni commented on how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Miss Lively. Now I wrote there, what TF, WTF, because all Blake does is talk about her outfits. All Blake did was talk about her wardrobe. She went over $500,000 for her wardrobe. So yeah, if he's trying to make you feel good in your outfit, girl, that you spent $500,000 for, all you cared about was your wardrobe and outfit. So this is so nuts. And then he says that they were all filming and she was very embarrassed because everyone had onesies on and she had a big jacket on. And in front of cast and crew, he asked her to take off the jacket like she was naked underneath or something when she had a freaking onesie on, like the entire cast had on. And she said that he only did that because she was wearing a lace bra underneath. But when you watch the movie, that thing was zipped up. There was no lace bra showing. And that is absolutely crazy to think that all of you are all in the scene in onesies and you don't have to be in a onesie. You could wear your jacket. Make it make sense. That's ridiculous. And then she only claims that she was very mad because he said, it looks hot, it looks sexy, like, oh my gosh. But what I really think happened is she got really upset because he told her that she had something in her teeth and called for a toothpick, and that's what she was embarrassed about. She does say on May 29th, 2023, that another member lodged an actual sexual harassment complaint. We'll see if that comes to light or where that is, because so far, no, haven't seen one. And Sony themselves has also said that the complaint wasn't sexual in nature, so we'll see. And then here she says, oh, he was crying in her trailer about her wardrobe and the feedback that the crew was getting. So it's kind of crazy that already people were smearing her. So how can you say that a smear campaign happened at the PR tour when the online backlash was already happening as soon as you started filming? And the backlash and what Justin Baldoni was saying came from Sony. And there was emails from Sony asking about it. So it's just very weird. And then he says his lengthy outburst caused a delay in shooting, forcing an emotional scene to be shot haphazardly. Ugh. So that was shot haphazardly. But then when he shoots scenes over and over and over again to get the right scene, then he's abusing the shooting, right? So it's like, you can't win throughout. And then they talk about, yeah, okay, Jamie Heath staring at her while she was pumping. Oh my gosh, please. Throughout filming, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath invaded Miss Lively's privacy by entering her makeup trailer uninvited while she was undressed, including when he saw her breastfeeding her infant. And then they say that just because she asked them to come in her trailer once doesn't give them an open invitation, and she can pump wherever she wants, and she wasn't given the necessary time to pump. I'm sure she didn't even ask for it or needed it because there's nannies and assistants, but whatever. I'm literally side questing this conversation. Segue. And yeah, just because she says it once doesn't mean it's like open consent. And Lively's one-time invitation was neither free license to join her immediately in her trailer, even though she says, yeah, come by, I'm pumping, nor was it a general invitation to freely walk in her trailer anytime uninvited. She had security and assistance there. Again, the fact that Mr. Baldoni, who has repeatedly preached the importance of consent while giving media interviews and public speaking events, now claims otherwise with respect to his own behavior, displays breathtaking hypocrisy. He says that Mr. Baldoni also routinely degraded Miss Lively. So he's also criticizing her about her weight and body, but then he's also like hitting on her and stuff, like whatever. Then she goes into the personal trainer stuff, as well as when she got strep throat, that he sent her to a doctor that she knows. And when she was filling out the forms, she realized that doctor also specializes in weight loss and thought that he was fat shaming her there. I mean, doctors can specialize in health and wellness, also strep throat, but then also weight loss. Like, it's just so crazy. And then she's also mad because in a text that Mr. Baldoni referred to Lively's trainer as a damn spy and sought to plant stories to portray his concerns as being motivated by his lower back. Yeah, I always call him a spy, but that trainer is definitely a snitcheroo. Like, he's literally snitching on Justin Baldoni for asking about it. It is nuts. When Miss Lively caught strep throat, that's the whole thing about the strep throat. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath also failed to implement COVID protocols when there was COVID outbreak on set. Both Miss Lively and her infant child contracted COVID. Ryan Reynolds also contracted COVID while on set and had to fly home. So did you get COVID from the ends with that set, or did you get COVID because your husband contracted it? Your husband, Ryan Reynolds, also blamed the actress on the set of Deadpool and Wolverine as well. So y'all just like to blame everyone, it looks like. And then, she didn't get any handbooks or sexual harassment policies or information on training, blah, 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 blah. Let's just move on and get into some juicy stuff at this point, because a lot of this stuff is repeated from the original one, but a lot of it as well down the pages are all repeated. So Anyway, she goes on to say that, they were making jokes about the HR complaint, that Jamie Heath hugged another, one of her assistants, Blake Lively's assistants, and said, I don't even know if I could do this. We have an HR report already. And that female cast members talked to each other about how uncomfortable they were both feeling. Female cast member talked to each other about how uncomfortable they were both feeling. Makes it seem like there was a lot of cast members doing this, but I think it was just that same old female cast member who likes to beat up her boyfriends. So then they go on that female cast member spoke to Sony as well. They filed complaints. We'll see if we ever get those, if they come to light. Of course, all of these people are going to be witnesses and have depositions as well. So let's see. Then referencing Mr. Baldoni, this is Lively continued, talking to the same female cast member saying, we're not people that can take a joke, who can't work or understand blue. We're not that fragile, referencing Mr. Baldoni, and said, you can't just record people without asking. You can't speak to people sexually while not in character or while talking about a character. And if you overstep, you move on. It's the weirdness after that makes it feel bad. Like as if we speak up, the vibes on set get funky and the work suffers. Just like during the dance montage, Extra came out and said that she was an extra on the set of that dance montage. And Justin gave this big speech from the heart about how important this film is and thanking everyone for being there. And everyone was clapping and cheering except for Blake Lively and this cast member, Jenny Slate. That's who I'm talking about here the whole time. Yeah, she likes to beat her boyfriend. So that's all I'm going to say about her. And then Blake Lively, to that same cast member, said that they are survivors with shared trauma from being on the set and dealing with Justin Baldoni. Yeah, they're trauma bonding. I mean, misery loves company. This is just so blown out of proportion. Mr. Baldoni's response to hearing the grievances of Miss Lively and another female cast member was dismissive. On June 8th, 2023, the female cast member who raised concerns about Mr. Baldoni's behavior told Miss Lively that Mr. Baldoni had heard the complaint of another actor. Dude, I have to tell you something, but I don't want to get canceled or lose my job. You can't say anything to anyone on set anymore. What? Like, make that make sense. They're basically saying that because of all of these reports, which we don't have, and all of these complaints, which we don't have, that they failed to report it or investigate it. So this is even though the incidents discussed above, among others, did not take place in isolation, and many, if not all, were witnessed by others. Yeah, bring on the witnesses. I'm ready to go to court. Let's talk about it. Let's see what these witnesses do have to say. Although defendants cannot point to a shred of evidence backing this up, defendants now insist that they were informed by Sony that any complaints were not sexual in nature and that Mr. Baldoni sensed that Lively was intentionally manipulating the facts. Mr. Baldoni admits that the way he addressed this was to create an acknowledgement note for someone else to pass on to Miss Lively, which Miss Lively found it entirely unsatisfactory. Then why didn't you say something? Like, I can't believe the power that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively yield, and she went on with this. Like, I like that she likes to put in here, they talk about the investigation that Wayfair started in January and how she thinks it's a sham. It's a sham. You know what else is a sham? Van Zandt. The parties negotiated contract rider regarding Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's conduct on the set of It Ends With Us. Yes, then they talk about all of the stuff that happened and the actual 17-point list of demand that was not written no more, and it wasn't 30, it was 17, and this is what actually should have been in place. Instead, she gave us that ridiculous attack where what we read at the beginning, but this is the one. It's pretty much a lot of the same stuff, but it doesn't have all of the crazy saging and all of that stuff in there. And it does say that the 10 provision is that there will be no retaliation of any kind against Miss Lively for raising concerns about the conduct described in the letter. There was no retaliation for these 17 points of demand because, in your own words, everything was fine. And you guys were actually working very closely together all the way up until you locked him out of the edit room. And then they realized that your crazy has gone too far and that they need to defend themselves because they don't know how far you and your husband are going to go. And now we know that you will burn it to the ground, that you very much are Khaleesi. And then she goes on to when they returned back to set, but this time she says it different. Before all the cast returned to set, Miss Lively will assure that you'll enjoy it this time and you don't have to hug anyone is the best part. But Blake, you're hugging people. We're here for hugs? We're here for hugs? That professional set was the result of an 8-month process in which Ms. Lively attempted privately to resolve concerns of misconduct and sexual harassment by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. Understanding the risk that she was taking by speaking up, Ms. Lively asked the Wayfarer agreed in a contract not to retaliate against her in any way, including in the press. Instead, the Wayfarer parties launched a vicious and well-funded retaliation campaign against her, which has grown more aggressive and harmful over the past several months. Ms. Lively led the edit of Sony's cut of the film, which was the version released in theaters. Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties have falsely claimed that Ms. Lively took over the movie as a self-aggrandizing power play. The defendant's entire accusations rely on Ms. Lively and others fabricating malicious claims nearly a year before an edit, though Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath repeatedly engaged in inappropriate behavior with witnesses and corroborators in real time. And then, even more complicated, their accusations would have required Ms. Lively to rely on the hope that the Wayfarer parties would sign a document acknowledging and agreeing to cease the detailed and specific misconduct described in her claims, after writing letters of apology to other female casts 8 months before. And also, most critically, the supposed master plan they absurdly accused Ms. Lively of would rely on the hope that Wayfarer would never in that 1.5-year process launch an HR investigation to clear their innocent names, but instead allow their film to be stolen from them. So why did you steal the movie? Though, you still didn't answer the question. The assertion Ms. Lively bullied her way into the edit room is not only false, but it was not even necessary. If she was not happy with the film, she could have easily moved on to her next project. She had offers for directing jobs before, during, and since the film. If she wanted to direct, she could do that at any time, and without having to deal with the Wayfarer parties, whom she very clearly wanted nothing to do with. Then why didn't you? Why, if you wanted nothing to do with it, why did you beg to be in the edit room? You're not making sense. The story of the edit of the film is not relevant to Ms. Lively's claims of sexual harassment and retaliation. The Sony cut is the film that was chosen to be released in theaters. Ms. Lively led the Sony cut with their support, working in close collaboration with Sony and Colleen Hoover. And then the rest of it is literally like, let's gas Blake up. Let's talk about how great she was, how Sony was behind her. Yeah, babes, they wanted to make money. Okay, the movie made money. They didn't care about nothing else except getting the movie done, keeping you quiet, and making as much money as possible. Okay, that's all they cared about. That's it, babes. That's it. Then she goes to insult Justin big time here. Indeed, although Mr. Baldoni privately confessed that he did not even see the final cut of the film until the premiere, he repeatedly and publicly took credit for the film while Miss Lively generally downplayed her contributions. No wonder why I put LOL. Do y'all think that Blake Lively downplayed her contributions when it came to how much she did in the film? And we all know that 90% of Justin's original cut made it into the final film. So he did all of the work. Blake came in, messed it all up, and then Sony asked him to put it right back because she did not get good feedback from her cut of the film. The irony of Wayfarer's complaints should be lost on no one. It is Mr. Soritz, Mr. Baldoni, and Mr. Heath that have reaped the greatest financial benefits from Miss Lively's hard work, about which they now complain. The film quickly became Wayfarer's most lucrative project to a record-breaking tune of over $350 million. Reveling in the financial success of the film, they now incredibly accuse Miss Lively of hijacking. Stop it. It also seems as long as Ms. Lively stayed silent about the Wayfarer's misconduct, defendants were content to continue collecting paychecks from the film they now claim she hijacked. It is only once she spoke up about the sexual harassment and retaliation for which defendants subjected her that they decided to attempt to convince the public that Ms. Lively ruined the film. And defendants they didn't say anything. And even in their complaint, they say, this is a story we were never going to tell. But Blake has given us no choice. Then she goes on to say Wayfarer had embraced and on information and belief had formally approved the marketing plan. So you don't even know on information and belief, don't even know if that's true. Mr. Baldoni and his team, including Mr. Soritz, had publicly embraced the same marketing plan. No, you don't know if that's true. And then they're saying that on the original It Ends With Us Instagram, they used the grab your besties, get your tickets, and wear your florals, and then had a problem with it when the audience came back and didn't like it. We'll need to know who's in charge of the official Instagram. To be clear, we're not saying it's been inappropriately marketed in any way. And in fact, you all have been brilliant. He says that That's what she's going like, oh, even Jamie Heath liked it. This was in the same email that he asked y'all to change what you were doing. He started with that and then was like, however, the audience isn't feeling it, In advance of the release of the film, all cast members chose to appear in public separately from Mr. Baldoni given his on-set behavior. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. After the film's premiere, Mr. Baldoni changed his Instagram profile, canceled lighthearted social media posts, and instructed his team to look for survivor reaction and support, all in an effort to quickly shift his own public narrative to focus solely on survivors and domestic violence organizations. Oh, you mean to go back to his original plan? To go back to what he's always done? Interesting. He tried it your way, wasn't feeling it, and was like, let me go back to what I usually do. Let me go back to how I feel and why I made this movie. Mr. Baldoni on August 8th, that creating content about DV would be acceptable following his initial marketing plan. It doesn't feel performative now that you've done major substantial press on the topic. On Information and Belief, Mr. Baldoni hoped to create the false impression that he had chosen not to appear alongside other cast members. That's not what it was giving to me. Mr. Baldoni directed his team to share on his public Instagram feed the private messages he had received from survivors sharing their stories of domestic violence with him. Mr. Baldoni went as far as proposing to share a video of a woman's birth moment, but his team talked him out of it, warning that it might be perceived as weird and was too intimate. Still, Mr. Baldoni's team was more than willing to deploy survivor stories, reactions, and images to protect Mr. Baldoni's image. Then they talk a whole bunch about like some of the PR stuff and how Jennifer Abel was even saying that like, oh no, we don't want an HR thing, or how cringy the kisses were, and like kind of making fun of Blake or whatever in their private text messages. And on August 1st, 2024, before any of the cast sat down for interviews at the film's press junkets, Ms. Abel stated to Mr. Heath and Wayfair personnel that she had held an in-person meeting with a contributor to People, Fox News, In Touch, and Us Weekly. Ms. Abel explained that during the meeting, she had fully briefed the contributor of the situation, which Ms. Lively, Ms. Abel stated, and was armed and ready to take the story of Blake weaponizing female feminism. The irony of Baldoni accusing anyone of weaponizing feminism, let alone the women who had edited the film for which Mr. Baldoni was poised to take credit, does not appear to have been discussed at Ms. Abel's dinner with her longtime friend. They go into the scenario planning. Should Ms. Lively and her team make her grievances? Should they make her grievances public? Which she didn't. This was a laugh out loud moment as well, because she says on August 1st, Miss Abel texted Miss Nathan stating, I'm having reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with, just to get ahead of it. She's putting us through hell. Miss Lively was in fact doing nothing other than engaging in the approved marketing plan for the film at the time. That's all you were doing, girl? You had those people sitting in a basement. You took over the movie. Like, you can't hide from that. You can't just run from the fact that you did that. Like, and then finally, we get a little bit of Jed Wallace here, where it says, on Information and Belief, Mr. Wallace specializes in executing confidential, untraceable campaigns across various social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, and X, to shape public perception of his clients and their adversaries, and to perpetrate those perceptions. Mr. Wallace himself has no online presence. He does not appear to have any public profiles on Facebook, Instagram, X, or LinkedIn. One LA publicist recently stated publicly, I imagine Jed has no interest in having his name out there. I imagine all of his work is word of mouth and he doesn't want to be known, because if he's the guy who makes things untraceable, that's the value. But Blake, made it known who Jed was. He also helps primarily families and individuals when they find themselves unjustly attacked, extorted, doxxed, swatted, scammed, or need help navigating through the most frightening situations. Mr. Wallace and defendant's counsel Brian Freeman have a close relationship that predates this litigation. In an August 13, 2024 text, Ms. Nathan inquired about whether she should create a signal thread between herself, Ms. Abel, and Mr. Wallace in case you need Mr. Wallace to connect you to Mr. Freeman, because they're very close. Defendant Tag and Ms. Nathan also have a relationship with Mr. Wallace that precedes this litigation. On Information and Belief, Tag retained Mr. Wallace and his company's relation to weaponize a digital army around the country, including New York and LA, to create, seed, manipulate, and advance disparaging content that appear to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums, including the specific platforms Ms. Abel told Mr. Baldoni they would focus on: Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. The next day, on August 8th, the tag team met with Mr. Wallace and his team to bring them up to speed so they can hit the ground running. On information and belief, following that meeting, Mr. Wallace was in a regular contract with most of the defendants. On August 13th, the Hollywood Reporter announced the retention of Mr. and Miss Nathan and Tag. The report stated, in part, the news comes days after sleuths flooded TikTok with speculation about an alleged rift between Baldoni and his cast and crew, including co-star and producer Blake Lively as well as Colleen Hoover. Chatter spiked when fans noticed Baldoni's absence from joint press events and the lack of group photos of Lively and Baldoni together at the New York premiere on August 6th. Some also pointed out that neither Lively or Hoover knew the rest of the cast follow Baldoni on Instagram, though he follows them. She does have a little footnote in here, and she wanted everyone to know that her and Ryan Reynolds actually unfollowed Justin Baldoni 10 months prior. On August 8th, 2024, Miss Abel stated that the situation had moved from just monitoring and scenario planting to, and me having to have more of an off-the-record conversation with outlets such as The Today Show. Miss Abel noted that because of Miss Nathan's relationship, those outlets were being kept at bay. The next day, an employee of Tag texted a story from a TikTok, which is very funny. They were like sharing TikToks, and this one was to divorce Ryan. You guys will love this. Basically saying that Blake needs to divorce Ryan because he's made her into a meme. He's ruining her biggest move of the year, forcing her to ostracize Justin, rewriting the script, etc. Yeah, we all felt that way, and I still feel that way. We all still feel like Ryan Reynolds is your biggest op, Blake Lively. I'm so sorry if you can't see it. Like, my gosh. On August 9th, the day the film premiered, Miss Abel and Miss Nathan flagged social media accounts questioning Mr. Baldoni's misconduct to Mr. Wallace, directing Mr. Wallace to take serious actions on the social side. That same day, Mr. Wallace reportedly told Miss Nathan that we are crushing it on Reddit. Miss Nathan relied the statements to Miss Abel in a text message, which appears to be referenced the efforts of Mr. Wallace to seed and influence online forums on Reddit attacking Miss Lively and defending Mr. Baldoni. On August 9th, they received some comments from The Hollywood Reporter and other news publications like the Daily Mail saying that, did Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni have a rift? And there's text messages between Abel and Nathan saying, I can tell you've done a lot of work here. Nothing about being unsafe. Fat comment, sexual. Thank fucking God. However, there's also Leslie Sloan too changed stories and was able to change stories in the media and get them to change narratives about Blake Lively as well. So it's like, this is the game of PR. I mean, changing narrative is the game. Like, you're fighting for your clients. I still don't see where they were attacking Blake Lively or making anything up about Blake or Ryan yet. This is just strictly PR for pro Justin Baldoni. Then they go on to say that Melissa, Nathan's sister, who works at the New York Post, came out with an article as well. She went on to say mostly the misogynistic. Later the same day, Nathan texted Miss Abel a link of the article on page 6 by Sarah Nathan entitled The Truth Behind It Ends With Us Feud Rumors. Justin Baldoni made Blake Lively uncomfortable, sources say, stating, I knew she would keep uncomfortable. So that doesn't look good for Justin Baldoni. So I'm not really sure why they're using that. I mean, even Melissa Nathan's sister wrote an article about Justin Baldoni making Blake Lively uncomfortable. So like, who's smearing who? I mean, they clearly weren't working hard enough if that article is still coming out and it's against Justin Baldoni. Some of these texts are like they were pumping up the media, Jennifer Abel, did we survive? We survived. All press is so overwhelming. We've confused people, so much mixed messaging. It's actually really funny if you think about it. Miss Nathan further texted Miss Abel that the worst is over and that Mr. Baldoni likely would not be canceled, corroborating that the nature of the ongoing campaign was designed to harm Miss Lively and conceal Mr. Baldoni's conduct on set. The following day, August 10th, a member of the tag team advised that they had started to see a shift on social media, due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. This message by itself completely debunks defendants' self-serving efforts to mislead the public into thinking that all they did was respond reactively to media inquiries in order to correct the record. As the tag employees' text messages confesses in real time, Mr. Baldoni's team, relying on Mr. Wallace and his team, had created a shift on social media via their successful efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. This is, of course, precisely the objective outlined in Miss Nathan's strategic plan and precisely the result that Mr. Baldoni had sought. And there's other texts where she says, but I see this as a total success, as does Justin. You did an amazing work. PR, baby. PR. I still don't see any proof that they were attacking Blake and Ryan or astroturfing them still yet. I mean, Still no proof, but yeah, I mean, they were doing PR. That's like, to me, that's what I see, but I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but that's what everyone does. I mean, stories were already, even Sarah Nathan came out with a story that said that Blake was uncomfortable. I mean, they were just trying to counter all of the stuff coming out. So it's like, how did they even know that those stories existed had Blake's team not fed them already to the news publications? The following day, Miss Abel confirmed to Mr. Baldoni that there had been nothing, very little pickup, and that fans believed the issue of the feud is because she took control of the movie, and we still do. For instance, on August 10th, Ms. Abel sent a TikTok post to Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively appearing to laugh together and wrote, "Wouldn't it be great for digital team to boost this in any way possible?" On August 12th, a tag team member circulated screenshots about speculation posts on social media, to which Miss Nathan responded, "Jed also shot me a note and asked to reschedule a Zoom conversation." The team discussed ways to use the digital team to amplify positive stories about Mr. Baldoni. Yes, amplify positive stories about Mr. Baldoni to counter all of the stuff that Blake Lively was doing behind the scenes, like refusing to even allow him to be at his own premiere. On August 18th, Mr. Baldoni circulated a TikTok video in which the poster criticized Miss Lively for not speaking about domestic violence in press interviews. A member of Miss Nathan's team responded that she should let digital know. The same day, Miss Abel flagged to tag that this girl is claiming that Mr. Baldoni invited her up to her hotel room years ago. The tag team later stated, "Let us chat to Jed as well on this." Then this doesn't help her case at all either, because Justin Baldoni was actually talking to his team about it not being bots and how people are going to think that it's him and he didn't want it to be him. And there's texts like that saying like, "Hey, I'm seeing some like random comments and stuff. Like, how do I know these aren't bots? How do I know that these are like real people and it's organic?" As well as any of the negative stories coming out with Blake, people are going to think that I'm doing this. How can we tell them that it's not me? He kept that intention, like to not bully her, but only amplify his own message, his own voice.